So Sony now has this trio of prime lenses they just brought out. And you might be wondering, well, which one do I want? They're all the same size. They're all the same cost. I think they're the same cost. But do you want the 24, the 40, or the 50? Which is going to work best for you? So what I've done is I set up a few different situations that I shot 3 times, once with each lens. And I'm going to chop and change between the lenses so you can see how each focal length just creates a different look. So the 40 and the 50 go to f2.5, but the 24 only goes to f2.8. So we're going to shoot everything at f2.8 today just to keep it fair. All right, let's do it. So for this first shot, I wanted to imitate a documentary style interview, just where they're kind of sat off center, looking off to the side, chatting to someone off camera, or in my case, just pretending to chat to myself off camera about the podcast we created.
Emilio Tassif and myself initially started the podcast after running a weekly clubhouse room. We realized we all just got on and we had similar goals. We straight stole the idea from Smartless, if you've heard of that podcast. Each week, one of us brings on a surprise guest, and the other two don't know about them. With the 3 of us chatting to the guest, it's a bit of a different dynamic. I'd say it's a bit more relaxed. It just kind of turns out to be a fun chat. So far, we've had Jesse Driftwood, Donna Did It, Gerald Undone, and Josh Yao from Make Art Now. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you want to watch the video version, there's one of those on YouTube too.
So that gives you a different idea of how each one of these lenses can create a different look. Now, obviously, the 40 and the 50 are very similar. I would say the 40 and the 50 are what I would choose. The 24 is definitely a look, and it's definitely wider back. I could have brought the 24 in much closer to get the same kind of framing in the shot there, but I wanted to save that for the next shot. I wanted to create a talking head segment, much like what you're seeing right now, that you could put on your channel, or I could use on my channel, and I just grabbed a light that I got sent and just chatted about it.
So this is a light from Falcon Eyes called the Arisa 1. I've been using it in all my videos recently back there to just subtly light the background a bit. Basically, it's a mini bi-color RGB light tube, charges through USB-C on the side there, has an internal battery and lasts about 2 hours. So you can control it directly on the light itself using the buttons on the side, but there's also an app that works with it. Full HSI control there just using the app, and also an RGB mode if you prefer to just control it that way. Another nice thing is that it has quick buttons for changing color temperatures. So there's 5500 right there, 6000, 2800, and it just changes. So that's pretty useful. There's a bunch of scenes if you want to pretend you're a police car, or I believe this thing is around $150. If you're interested, I'll put a link down below for you.
So this is interesting because it really does show how you use different lenses for different purposes. For the interview, the 40 and the 50 look best. But I think for YouTube, because it's what we're used to, the 24 looks best. Often people will use a big wide lens for a talking head segment like this and sit pretty close to the camera. Like right now I'm using the 24 GM and I'm sat like 15 inches from the front of the lens. So you're going to use a wider lens typically for a talking head segment like this. You could use the 40 or the 50. It's just a bit of a different vibe, much more intimate. That's a weird word to say on camera, isn't it? Let's go to the next shot. So you might be looking at these prime lenses for taking photos, specifically portraits. So let's take a look at how each one compares. And the key here was I wanted to keep the framing the same. So my head, my face, roughly the same size. Now, without even looking at these photos, if you're experienced, you're going to know that 40 or 50 is going to be the most pleasing of the looks here. You're typically not going to use a 24 for taking portraits. Few reasons. The main one, you're not going to get that compression in the background. You're not going to get that bokeh. And also, the way that the focal length changes how my face looks, it's just not that pleasing. I wouldn't pick 24 for this. I would go with the 40 or 50. It's not to say you can't. Just, you can do whatever you want. Just, I wouldn't use the 24.
So I threw this one in just for fun. I think it's going to be obvious that 2 of these lenses aren't great for vlogging unless you want that super close up look at my paws look, which I'm pretty sure nobody does.
So the 24 might actually be a decent option for you if you wanted to vlog. If anyone vlogs anymore. I don't know if they do. I'm sure they do, but it's a pretty small setup. That's it on the A7 III there. If you're holding it out, you don't really want it to be that heavy, that cumbersome. That will go into a bag nice and easy there. It's not going to be strenuous on your arm. So the 24 might actually be a pretty decent option for you to vlog with. f2.8, so you're still going to get a little bit of background separation, but you're also getting that nice wild field of view. Wide field of view. The 40 and the 50 are the ones you wouldn't vlog with. Hopefully you picked up on that. What about if you're shooting some good old-fashioned B-roll? 24, 40, and 50, all good lengths that you could shoot B-roll with. I tried to shoot exactly the same stuff all handheld. Let's take a look and see how they compare. Now I gotta say, for B-roll, it really doesn't matter. It's all very subjective. The 40 and the 50 are so close that you're probably not gonna notice that much of a difference, whereas the 20 gives you a much wider field of view. The 24 also has less separation, but I think it really depends on what it is that you're shooting B-roll of. So this one is gonna be completely up to you. The one thing I will say with the 24 is, because it's wider, you don't get as much background compression there. If you do have things in the foreground, they're going to be a lot more obvious than if you're using the 40 or the 50, so it's a little bit more distracting, so bear that in mind. I didn't talk about specs in this video because it's been done so many times before. I just wanted to show you practical examples of how each one of these lenses can be used for different situations and how it looks, how they kind of compare. So hopefully that came across. So my overall thoughts on these lenses, they're fairly pricey for what they are, but you are getting a lot of features in these lenses. Each one of these all has the button on there which you can assign to whatever you want, like eye autofocus. They all have the autofocus manual focus switch, which a lot of cheaper lenses typically don't have, and they have a declicked aperture button there as well, so your aperture can go from being clicky to declicked at the touch of a button there, or a switch. Those are all features that you get in much higher end lenses, like the GM lenses, like the 24 GM has all those features. So that's quite impressive. The build quality is pretty good. They are small, but they have a nice little weight to them, and they're made of Sony's like metal stuff. It's the same quality you'd expect out of a Sony G lens, not a GM, a G lens. If you were to compare the 24 GM, which I'm shooting on right now, to this definitely isn't as sharp, but it's also a lot less money. So you kind of have to weigh that up. So in my opinion, what you're really paying for with these lenses is the size and portability. They're tiny little primes stacked with features with pretty good image quality. 3 of those is smaller and lighter than the Sigma 24-70, but I would still pick the Sigma 24-70, to be honest with you. I haven't tested it, but I'm going to go on a limb and say that this is probably sharper than these are. For 1.5 of the cost of these, you can buy this, and this is much more versatile in terms of a lens. Just my 2 cents anyway. All right, that'll do. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.